Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Tang. Welcome to the CIS 600 presentation on version control. Three main objectives for today. Firstly, I want to go through what is version control, what are the learning outcomes for this presentation, as well as why is it important for a researcher to use version control tools. And I'll also provide a live demonstration of version control. So what is version control? So version control, unlike Git, is a concept for tracking and managing file changes over time. So this includes code, documents, data. It enables revision, changes in code, collaboration with a wider team, and also for auditing. There are two types of version control. There is the centralized version control, which is Apache Subversion, or commonly SVN, or distributed version control. So that is Git, commonly known as GitHub. Now, what is Git? So Git itself is a version control tool created in 2005 by Linus. It is free, open source, and it is the most widely used version control tool in the world, with over 90% of all developers using it. And it has many amazing features. Some of them include fast branching, merging, offline work, integrity checks via hashing for your code. Now let's take a look at what are some of the learning outcomes. So some key concepts here of version control. What is a repository? Most commonly known as a repo. Think about it as a very advanced Google Drive that programmers use. It is where they store their code, their data, and in this presentation, we'll learn how to create local and remote repos. A commit. So a commit would be some kind of update to a code. And a commit usually includes some kind of descriptive message on what is changed. So we will practice committing frequently and track those iterations and provide a descriptive message to each commit. Branches, so much like a tree where the trunk is the main code, the working code, you can have branches that are experimental versions of some feature, for instance, and we'll learn how to create those experimental features, those branches. We'll learn how to switch them, and we'll learn how to delete those branches. Next, merging. So branches where we have experimental features, we want them in the main code itself. So the process of merging is taking a branch, a feature, and putting it in the main code. So we'll learn how to merge different features, and there's this problem that could arise called a merge conflict. We'll learn how to resolve merge conflicts. We also learn how to clone, pull, and push. So cloning would be creating a local copy of the online repository or repo, pulling updates, getting the latest changes, or pushing, which is uploading your changes. Finally, we'll look at version history and diff. So version history allows you to view all of the changes over time, and diff, for each change, what exactly changed, which line of code changed, and so forth. Next, we'll look at why is version control so important in academic research. Now, firstly, a repository, a repo. A repo can be made public, so anyone in the world can see your repository. And it allows others to study your code or your methodology. So this basically ensures collaboration and replication in your research study. Now, a commit. So this would be similar to documenting all changes, for instance, tweaking of a model parameter. This basically ensures reproducibility. Next, branching. So in your research, you could run into many dead ends. You could come up with many alternative hypotheses or methods or different approaches. So each of those could be a branch, some experimental approach. And this basically fosters innovation because you could have different team members working on different hypotheses and have the best one be merged into the main or final project. Merging similarly allows team to collaborate um, and merge into a final cohesive product. Clone, pull, and push. This basically enables distributed teamwork. So you could have a team across multiple geographical locations, and all of them can be working on the same code base. Finally, version history and diff. This supports transparency in the research because as a external party, we can see all changes made to the code or the data. Now let's move on to the fun part, a Git demo. So in this demo, I'm using a project in my CIS 631 class. It is a Kaggle competition from Travelers Insurance. In this project, we have to predict if, based on data, that if a user is liable for some kind of claim. And in this project, we have 3 team members, and we are using version control, GitHub, to collaborate between us. In there, you can see code for EDA, exploratory data analysis. We have a main repository for the baseline model, and branch repositories, for instance, the ensemble model, which is a experimental test. Yeah, let's move on to the Git demo. Welcome to the version control demo section of the presentation. We are primarily using GitHub as our version control tool. This is my GitHub profile. Let's hop into the Travelers repository. This is a repository. As you can see, a repository contains all of the project/research files. This can be your baseline Jupyter Notebook file, which contains your code, for instance, or documentation on the various methods, or even data sets like clean data, prediction, or submission. Now for the current branch, which is the main branch, this is a working think of this as the working version of your code. As you can see in the main branch, I currently have 11 commits. Let's drill into one of the commits. So in this, we can see left, which is the old code, and right, the changed code. Now, whatever is highlighted in red, those are lines that are removed, and the lines in green on the right is the changes. Now, basically, this enforces transparency, reproducibility, because anyone can see all of the changes made over time to your repository. Now let's take a look more into branches. As you can see here, I have my main branch. Once again, that is the working version of your code. But you could also have experimental branches, experimental features. For instance, for this project, we have our baseline model in the main, and we like to experiment around with different new ideas. For instance, using an ensemble model to see if we have a better prediction result. So I have an ensemble branch here that I can work on. In here, we can see that we are 2 commits ahead of the main branch. So let's take a look at what are those changes. As you can see here in this new commit, added ensemble learning to project. Now, we always want descriptive names for each commit so we know what it does. So added ensemble learning to project, it means we added the following lines of code, ensemble learning to the project. Now, once we finalize a feature and we are satisfied with the new feature, with the results, and I want to integrate it into my working version of the code, I can merge those changes. So it looks like we might have a merge conflict in here, and we'll look at what that is later in the presentation in demo. Now, other things are cloning. So I can open up this repository with GitHub Desktop. And what this allows me to do is create my local version of Let me abort this merge. Now, cloning a repository means to create a local version of your code. This basically allows you to make changes locally, test those changes before committing those changes to the main repository in the cloud. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So I have my Travelers project saved in my desktop location, and we have the same files here that you saw in the repository. Now, pulling origin means fetching the latest changes from the server. So let's say if your team members made a change, they have uploaded and committed the change, I can pull those changes into my local repository. So by clicking on pull, now I have the latest version of the code. Once I've pulled the latest version, I can navigate to my Jupyter Notebook, and I will have the latest version of the code here. Now this is the baseline, and notice that we are in the main repository. Let's say I want to work on the ensemble learning part of the repository. I can click on this and change my current branch from main to the ensemble branch. And let's fetch the latest code from the repository. Now, once I've done that, I'll refresh my Jupyter Notebook and let's scroll down. Notice previously we ended off with this particular chart, but in my ensemble learning branch, I actually have more code, and this is the ensemble learning code right here. So you can see how this allows different team members to collaborate on different features, test each of those features before merging the branches into main. Now let's do some experimentation here. Let's create a commit. So for instance, let me write a comment here and say, this is done. And I'm satisfied with the results. I'll save the file, and in my GitHub desktop, you can see my latest change right here. That I've added this line, this is done. I'll provide a summary. Satisfied with results, ready to merge into main. And I'll commit those changes to my branch. Now you will see this button called push origin. What push origin is uploading those changes. Once I've committed the changes, I need to push the code into the online repository. So click push origin, and I'm done. Now suppose now I want to merge the changes of my ensemble branch into my main branch because I'm satisfied with the work in my ensemble branch. I can switch myself to the main branch. So you can see that the program checked out my ensemble branch, and now I've switched to the main branch. So let's see how that looks like. If I refresh my baseline, you can see that the code beneath is gone, and the last line here is the F1 optimization curve. This is how I know that I'm on my main branch. In order to merge the changes, I can click choose a branch to merge into main. I want to merge my ensemble branch. Oh, and it says that we have some merge conflicts. Now what a merge conflict is that as we merge those two branches together, sometimes you can have the same changes in code on both branches, and it's up to the developer to decide which branch changes should we accept. Sometimes you want to not keep the changes, sometimes we want to keep the changes but in the branch. So let's try it. I'll create a merge commit. Oh, I have two conflicts here. The first one is a conflict in my Jupyter Notebook file, the checkpoint. I can just use the latest modified file from my ensemble branch in this case. So one conflict is resolved. Next, in my Jupyter notebook, I would prefer to I would prefer to use the modified file from ensemble. So I'll click on this. Now I've resolved the merge conflict, and I'll continue the merge. Once I've committed the merge, I upload the code to the repository, which is push origin. So now I have my ensemble code in the main branch. So ensemble is still there. We can always revert the changes if we found anything later, but now main should have our ensemble code. So let's take a look at history. As you can see in the baseline Jupyter notebook, we've added this code here, the ones in green. So that is the precise code for ensemble model. Now let's fetch the latest code in our main branch, and we will refresh our Jupyter notebook file. And as you can see, previously our main branch ended right here at the F1 optimization curve. But now, with the merge complete, I can have the experimental features in my main branch. It is very, very important to make sure that each team member tests their individual branches before creating this merge, because once again, the main branch should contain a working version of your code. All right, let's take a look at a summary of all of the things that we learned today. So we learned what version control is and what is a version control tool like Git. Some of the key benefits to highlight are it is fully distributed, cloud-based. It supports your research by emphasizing reproducibility, transparency, and backup. It fosters collaboration because it is open source. It has all of the version control features. And finally, integration is excellent with almost any software IDE out there. Data scientists, Jupyter Notebook. If you're a software developer, you will be VS Code. And if you're writing a research paper, LaTeX. Thank you, and all the best to your future research.